Hey there! A massive welcome to my absolute favorite viewer, yep, my amazing daughter, and, of course, a huge welcome to all the curious minds tuning in to the VU3R Education Solutions channel today. We're doing something really fun. We're basically bringing the laboratory straight to your screen with a special virtual explainer covering Chapter 5 of your science book. So, get ready. We're going to mentally put on our lab coats, play scientific detective, and uncover the completely wild secrets hiding in something you literally walk on every single day.
Okay, let's just dive right into this. When you step outside, maybe you're in the garden or out on the school field, and you scoop up a handful of earth, what do you actually think you're holding? Well, most of us just look at it, see some brown dust, maybe a couple of pebbles, and we just call it dirt. It seems pretty simple, right? But I kind of want to challenge what you think you know about that common ground. Because what if I told you that handful of Earth is actually this bustling, incredibly complex universe all on its own?
So the big thing here is that in science, we don't just call it dirt, we call it soil. And soil is what we define as a complex mixture. I want you to totally shift your perspective for a second. It's not just one plain, boring, brown substance. It's actually made up of separated components. When you hold soil, you're holding little fragments of plants, animal parts, water mixed with tiny clay particles, and, most crazily, living organisms. It's this fascinating, multi-layered mixture. But hey, don't just take my word for it. Let's actually prove it.
Investigation 1. Uncovering soil's ingredients with the water tube experiment. Let's get into it.
To really understand what this mixture is, we have to break it apart. So imagine you're doing this experiment right at your desk right now. It is wonderfully simple, but so effective. First, you just dig a small hole in the garden, grab a soil sample. Next, you mix that sample really thoroughly with some water. Then you pour that muddy mix into a clear polythene tube or just a plastic bag. And finally, the absolute hardest part of the whole experiment, you just leave it alone to settle. Yep, we're going to let gravity do all the heavy lifting for us here.
And this is where it gets cool, because it brilliantly shows what happens after we let it rest. The soil physically separates into these super distinct layers. Honestly, it's kind of like a settling snow globe. Because they all have different weights, the components just naturally divide themselves. The light organic material, so the plant and animal parts, they float right up to the top. Then, right underneath that, the water mixes with the fine clay particles and forms this cloudy, distinct layer. And finally, the really heavy stuff like sand and gravel sinks straight to the very bottom. So just by using water and gravity, boom, we've unlocked the physical layers of our soil.
Okay, so we've definitely solved the mystery of the physical materials. But wait, remember earlier? Our definition of soil mentioned something else. Living organisms. Now sure, occasionally you might spot a worm or a random beetle in there, but what about the things we absolutely cannot see? Are we really surrounded by invisible life?
That brings us to investigation 2, finding invisible soil life. It's time to meet the microorganisms. This is a much trickier mystery. On one hand, you've got the creepy crawlies we can easily see with our naked eye, right? Ants, locusts, millipedes, centipedes. But the soil is also literally packed with microscopic life forms. Tiny, tiny creatures squiggling around and thriving, completely undetected by us humans. Let's lock in a clear definition for your science notes here. Soil microorganisms are living organisms present in the soil, but they are completely, 100% invisible to our naked eye. You could be holding millions of them in the palm of your hand and have absolutely no clue. So if we can't see them, how in the world do we prove to everyone watching VU3R Education Solutions that they actually exist? Enter the milk and soil test. This is how we prove the invisible actually exists. We are basically going to use chemistry and biology to trap them. Welcome to our ultimate detective test. Now pay really close attention to how we set this up, because precision is absolutely key. First, we sterilize 2 test tubes in boiling water. Why? Because we have to destroy any existing outside microbes. We need a totally clean slate. Second, we add equal amounts of boiled milk into both tubes and just let them cool down. Third, we take a soil sample, split it right in half, and add heated soil to one tube and non-heated soil to the other. Finally, we tightly fix cotton stoppers to the top of both. That lets the air get in but completely blocks any new random microbes from floating in from the room. So, you might be wondering, why did we treat the 2 batches of soil differently? Well, this is the heart of any great experiment, our variables. In our first sample, the heated soil, we purposely heated it on a metal plate for about 5 minutes.
That heat destroys the microorganisms. It basically just turns off all the biological activity. But in our second sample, the non-heated soil, we left it in its totally natural state. So if there are invisible microbes living in that soil, they are completely untouched, perfectly alive, and ready to do their thing.
Next, we leave our tubes alone for a few hours, and then we come back to check out the results. Test tube A, the one with the heated soil, shows delayed coagulation, meaning the milk is still mostly liquid. But test tube B, with the natural non-heated soil, it looks completely different. The milk has changed dramatically. It went through incredibly fast coagulation, turning all chunky and thick. So what does this all mean for our final conclusion? Well, why did the milk turn chunky? It's because the coagulation of milk is a direct result of microbial activity. The milk with the natural non-heated soil coagulated really fast because it was absolutely full of hungry, active microbes going to work on those milk sugars. On the flip side, the milk with the heated soil coagulated super slowly because, remember, we destroyed those microbes with the heat. And boom, that solves our scientific mystery. This is undeniable physical proof that living microorganisms are actively present in natural soil. No way around it. Which brings us to a living world underground, and how this completely changes our perspective. By carefully breaking down the physical layers using water and then tracking the biological activity using milk, we have totally redefined what the ground beneath us really is. And to cement this scientific fact, I want to highlight this super powerful conclusion straight from Chapter 5 of your textbook. It says, coagulation of milk is a microbial activity. Milk in the test tube with unheated soil will coagulate faster. That single sentence represents the invisible, thriving biology that literally supports our entire planet's ecosystem. How cool is that? So I want to leave you with this one thought. The next time you step out into the garden or, walk across a grassy field, are you just going to see plain old dirt? Or will you remember the water tube and the milk test and realize you are walking on top of thriving, complex, totally invisible ecosystem right beneath your very feet? Keep asking questions, keep looking closer, and honestly, never stop exploring the science all around you. Thank you so much for joining this explainer on View 3R Education Solutions.